Good morning, my name is James Lloyd. I'm one of the first-year cardiology fellows from Mayo Clinic here at ACC's Legislative Conference for 2019. I have with me Mr. David Lusk, founder of Key Advocacy. He's been kind enough to join us this morning, and Mr. Lusk, we'd very much appreciate to hear what your role is in ACC's advocacy and legislative program, and how Key Advocacy comes into play.
Sure. Well, part of what I'm doing today is to talk to fellows and other attendees about the importance of being engaged with your legislative office 365 days a year. Much like with heart health, doing exercise once is better than never doing it, but we need to maintain some level of activity to stay healthy. The same is true for advocacy. To have the most healthy, active, engaged program, a little bit of advocacy throughout the year can really go a long way in building relationships with members of Congress and their staff. As far as my role with ACC, this is the first time I've actually worked with the organization. And part of that actually came from a relationship of having known Liz Shaw on staff for a number of years. So that just goes to show how relationships can take time to build, but can also often produce fruits of any kind. So.
And absolutely, as rising fellows and practitioners in our own right, we certainly appreciate the importance of those types of relationships and cultivating them. What else, from the perspective of individuals who are training and completing their training, would you recommend we pursue from an advocacy perspective?
I think remembering how important it is to inform and engage not only members of Congress, but their staff. I think that healthcare is certainly one of the most crucial issues that always face our country. That's always been something that's been at the top of everyone's minds for decades. But I don't think people understand how challenging it is for health professionals today. Either those who have gone to undergrad, coming through medical school, and sometimes the amount of debt that professionals take on, to the stresses of serving in the job. And I think when you look at congressional offices where we have very few legislators who have a background in healthcare. In fact, right now, I think there are 14 who have doctor of some type in their past, which could be a dentist, ophthalmologist, and 17 overall who have some level of having served as a healthcare practitioner, some of who may have been nurses, others are physicians and surgeons. So helping those offices understand what's happening on the front lines is very important, because there's just no way without experience for them to understand what a practitioner goes through. So.
And with that in mind, it's also important for us to appreciate what we can expect at the next step or in the future with respect to advocacy. What do you anticipate being the biggest challenges for us the next few years, especially from the trainee level?
Well, one of the things that we've seen is something that in my tenure has been more new in my time in DC, which is what we refer to as a change election or wave election. And that's where we see power changing hands within the two parties. So whether it's the White House going from one party to the other, or the House or the Senate. When that happens in Congress, we see new chairmen come in, we see new ranking members of the committees. We also will see sometimes a lot of legislators resign because they're now serving in the minority. They were used to being in the majority. When that happens, it creates a large knowledge and experience gap on Capitol Hill. And if any of those legislators bring colleagues from back home or who had served on their campaign, now we're talking about a large number of staffers who don't understand Capitol Hill, don't have a long tenure or a history. We saw in the current Congress, the 116th Congress, with the elections that we had recently, we now have the largest freshman class since the House of Representatives was first expanded to 435 seats back in the early 1900s. So again, how can legislators understand what they need to do? There's only so many staff that serve as lobbyists for any organization. So there's great value in engaging and helping these offices to serve as a resource so they can understand the challenges that you face throughout your career. Going from even from undergrad to serving as a fellow to starting your own practices.
Well, thank you very much. And so with that said, it's important for us, as Mr. Lusk suggested, to focus on relationships and networking. This is ACC Legislative Conference 2019. I'd like to thank Mr. Lusk for meeting with us as the founding member of Key Advocacy. Thank you very much.